Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the 75th anniversary of the 4th Fighter Wing and the 70th anniversary of our nation's Air Force. I am Doc Heidecker.
And I am Master Sergeant Sarah Marak from the 4th Logistics Readiness Squadron. We will be your MCs for the evening.
That certainly was an incredible live orchestra performance during our social hour. Let's give it up for the musical talents of Scott McConaughey and the Starlight Dance Band.
At this time, please stand for the playing of musical honors, the presentation of the colors, singing of our national anthem by the USO Show Troop, and invocation by Chaplain Lieutenant Colonel Rosenthal.
Let us pray. Eternal loving God, on the 70th anniversary of the Air Force and the 75th anniversary of the 4th but 1st, we gather to celebrate our commitment to the Constitution and to one another. You have given us the opportunity to serve you, our nation, and the cause of justice in a way that few will ever know. Remind us again in our privileged work that the price of freedom remains high and that vigilance, service, and commitment are our calling. Lord, this gala is filled with history and customs, or using the ideas of Edgar Schein, our Air Force culture has its own values, artifacts, and underlying core beliefs. We rejoice in the spectrum of cultures that color the entire Air Force family. For the richness of this diversity and for the vision of harmony shared by all who don this uniform, I give you thanks. Be present at our table, Lord, and give us moderation in all things, in our food, drink, and conversation. Help us this evening to enjoy new and old friendships. Bless this evening's food from the bounty of the good earth you have created, and bless those hands that have cooked and served this meal. Finally, Lord, as the 4th but 1st ramps up for a major deployment next month, I ask you to protect all who are downrange and those who will soon be downrange. Give success to our mission and thwart the designs of evil people who seek chaos and destruction. By your hand, may the nations of our world know peace and freedom. Amen.
Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you, Chaplain Rosenthal, for tonight's blessing. And thank you to the USO Show Troupe for that beautiful rendition of our national anthem. Let's give it up for that USO Show Troupe. We'll be seeing them again a little later.
We would like to take a moment to welcome all distinguished guests joining us this evening. Please hold your applause until the end.
Commander, Air Combat Command, and our guest speaker for tonight's event, General Mike Holmes with his wife, Sarah.
Commander and President, Air University, Air Education and Training Command, Lieutenant General Stephen Quast with his wife, Joni, and their children, Keegan and Lily.
Commander, 12th Air Force, Lieutenant General Mark Kelly.
Mayor, City of Goldsboro, the Honorable Chuck Allen.
Commander, 19th Air Force, Air Education and Training Command, Major General Patrick Doherty with his wife, Dee Dee.
Director, United States Air Forces in Europe, United Kingdom, Brigadier General Mark Slocum.
Commander, 57th Wing, Brigadier General Jeannie Levitt.
Former Commander, 4th Fighter Wing, Brigadier General, retired Larry Huggins.
Councilman, City of Goldsboro, Mr. Bill Broadway with his wife, Ann.
Councilman, City of Goldsboro, Mr. Mark Stevens with his guest, Miss Amanda Boyle.
Councilman, City of Goldsboro, Mr. David Ham with his wife, Betty Duncan.
Councilman, City of Goldsboro, Mr. Gene Aycock with his wife, Sherry.
Former Mayor, City of Goldsboro, Mr. Al King with his wife, Juanita.
Commander, 4th Fighter Wing, and our host for tonight, Colonel Christopher Sage with his wife, Jessica.
Vice Commander, 4th Fighter Wing, Colonel Brian Armstrong.
Command Chief, 4th Fighter Wing, Chief Master Sergeant William Adams with his wife, Suzanne.
Commander, 916th Air Refueling Wing, Colonel Scoville Corrin with his wife, Lisa.
Vice Commander, 916th Air Refueling Wing, Colonel Craig McPike with his wife, Jennifer.
Command
and
Chief.
We would like to wish him a very happy birthday today.
Command Chief, 916th Air Refueling Wing, Chief Master Sergeant Shirley Wilcox.
Commander, 4th Operations Group, Colonel Richard Dickens with his wife, Krista.
Commander, 916th Operations Group, Colonel Douglas Stauffer with his wife, Amy.
Commander, 4th Maintenance Group, Colonel Shannon Cooper with his wife, Kim, and daughter, Daisy.
Commander, 4th Mission Support Group, Colonel Jason Knight with his wife, Maria.
Commander, 4th Medical Group, Colonel Craig Keyes with his wife, April.
From the 414th Fighter Group, Mrs. Nikki Freeman, wife of Colonel Andy Freeman, with Deputy Commander, Colonel Michael Eltz, and his wife, Renee.
And to all squadron commanders, chiefs, first sergeants, 4th Fighter Wing Airmen and veterans, welcome.
A customary tradition in a formal military function is that of offering official toasts. Please stand at this time and ensure your glass is charged and have a glass of water available. Hear, hear.
To the flag of the United States of America.
To the colors.
To the Chief of Staff of the United States Air Force.
To the Chief.
Hear, hear.
Hear, hear.
And now the final toast of this evening. Ladies and gentlemen, please bring your attention to the empty table set before you tonight. This table is our way of recognizing comrades who are missing from our midst. We have not forgotten those who have been prisoners of war or missing in action.
As you entered the dining area, you may have noticed a table at the front, raised to call your attention to its purpose. It is reserved to honor our missing loved ones.
Set for one, the empty place represents Americans still missing from our Air Force. This honor ceremony symbolizes that they are with us here in spirit.
Some here in this room were very young when they went to combat. However, all Americans should never forget the brave men and women who answered our nation's call to serve and served the cause of freedom in a special way.
Please remain standing for a moment of silent prayer as the Honor Guard places the service cover on the empty plate.
We would like to explain the meaning of the items on this special table.
The table is round to show our everlasting concern for our missing men and women.
The tablecloth is white, symbolizing the purity of their motives when answering the call to duty.
The single red rose displayed in a vase reminds us of the life of each of the missing and the loved ones and friends of these Americans who keep the faith, awaiting answers.
The vase is tied with a red ribbon, a symbol of our continued determination to account for our missing.
A slice of lemon on the bread plate is to remind us of the bitter fate of those captured and missing in a foreign land.
A pinch of salt symbolizes the tears endured by those missing and their families who seek answers.
The glass is inverted to symbolize their inability to share in this evening's toast.
The chair is empty. They are missing.
Let us now raise our water glasses in toast to honor America's POW MIAs and to the success of our efforts to account for them. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. Please be seated.
At this time, I would like to introduce your host for this evening, 4th Fighter Wing Commander, Colonel Christopher Sage.
What an honor it is to welcome all of you here this evening with the beautiful sunset, the beautiful music, and this amazing crowd. What a great night and a great weekend. If you missed the Battle of Britain's celebration last night, we lit the night on fire, literally. But I'd like to take a minute to thank the people that spent their energy and their time to make tonight happen. And I would be remiss if I did not mention Doc Heidecker, because it was about a year ago today that he came to me with this great idea. He planted the seed that turned this weekend and tonight into a reality. So Doc, thank you. There, we recruited a great team. Lieutenant Colonel Drago Taylor took the lead, along with Major Hanson, Master Sergeant Perez, and lastly, Tech Sergeant Thomas, who's responsible for this evening. And many of us know that tonight would not be possible without the unwavering support of the downtown community and the Military Affairs Committee. So how about a round of applause for them as well? Last but not least, we have some young aspiring airmen over here in the Civil Air Patrol. That's a great partner with us. They're part of the total force, and there is committed Americans that are here to serve. Thank you so much for coming tonight. And I'm sure many of you have noticed, but I wanted to make you aware of an Air Force tradition that allows for the flagship of a wing to be painted in an anniversary paint scheme. If you haven't had the chance to admire the work that Tech Sergeant Fox and his fabrication team from the Equipment Maintenance Squadron has done, to make that Strike Eagle shine with the ferocity, pride, esprit de corps that this wing is known for, I would encourage you to do that after the dinner. It's truly inspiring. Where's Tech Sergeant Fox and his team? Where you guys sitting? There they are. We're gathered here tonight in celebration of the profound contributions and the inspiring legacy of the 4th Fighter Wing and our great Air Force. Tonight is one for the history books. We're fortunate enough to have with us tonight veterans of World War II, of Korea, Vietnam, the Cold War, the Gulf War. There are Silver Star recipients. There's even a aircrew here that struck an enemy aircraft and received a kill with a precision-guided munition. There's 4-star generals down to our youngest airmen, all airmen who courageously wore and continue to wear the cloth of our nation, all committed to defending liberty and our way of life. And it is also tonight our special honor to have 8 active duty and 1 retired 4th Fighter Wing commander here with us this evening. So a special thanks to each of the Lion Ones that made the trip with their families. There's little doubt that our Air Force is the greatest in the world, humbly. And our current generation of Air Force warriors will see to it that we maintain that dominance. But we also take a minute tonight to remember the sacrifice of those who gave everything so that we can be here. From the Eagle Squadron veterans of almost 8 decades ago to the airmen who within weeks will deploy in support of Operation Inherent Resolve, the heritage of this wing is remarkable. We're going to learn a little bit about that tonight. So welcome, thanks for coming, and please enjoy your evening.
Thank you, sir. Without further ado, let's eat. Let's give a round of applause to the USO show troupe for their incredible performance this evening. We want to thank Al Peterson and the entire USO for assisting us in providing that world-class entertainment this evening. As you continue to finish your meal, we're going to take a few minutes to honor not only our proud accomplishments as airmen that dates back to 1947, but we're going to remember the history of our very own 4th Fighter Wing dating all the way back to 1942. In 1940, England stood alone against the might of Nazi Germany. American pilots were recruited to serve in the Royal Air Force. These brave Americans, volunteers all, became known as the Eagle Squadrons. From 1940 to 1942, 245 American pilots served in RAF Eagle Squadrons 71, 121, and 133. The first American ace of World War II was Eagle Squadron pilot William Dunn. During their brief existence, the Eagle Squadron shot down 100 German planes and helped keep England free from the Nazis. They paid a high price to do so. The Eagle Squadron pilots endured a 45% casualty rate. On 29 September 1942, the men of the RAF Eagle Squadrons became the 334th, 335th, and 336th Fighter Squadrons of the 4th Fighter Group. In formation, wearing their American uniforms for the first time, they listened to the following speech delivered by Air Chief Marshal Douglas, Royal Air Force. Speaking these words for us this evening is Squadron Leader Christopher Rugg, our Royal Air Force exchange pilot.
We at Fighter Command deeply regret this passing, for in the course of the past 18 months, we have seen the stuff which you have made, and we could not ask for better companions with whom to see this fight through to the finish. It is with deep personal regret that I today say goodbye to you whom it's been my privilege to command. You joined us readily and of your own free will when our need was greatest. There are those of your number who are not here today, those sons of the United States who were first to give their lives for their country. We of the Royal Air Force, no less than yourselves, will always remember them with pride. The US Army Corps, their gain is very much the Royal Air Force's loss. The loss to the Luftwaffe will no doubt continue as before. You are the vanguard of that great host of your compatriots who are now helping us to make these islands a base from which to mount that great offensive which we all desire. Goodbye, and thank you, Eagle Squadrons number 71, 121, and 133, and good hunting to you.
We could spend the entire evening reciting the accomplishments of the 4th Fighter Group in World War II. First fighter group to escort bombers to Berlin. The only fighter group to fly the Russian shuttle mission. Highest scoring group or wing in history, with 1,016 enemy planes destroyed. But instead, we want to share the defining moment of the 4th Fighter Wing. On June 5th, 1944, the evening before D-Day, Colonel Don Blakesley, commander of the 4th Fighter Group, spoke to all his pilots. He said, "Gentlemen, tomorrow is D-Day, the invasion of Fortress Europe. In order to defeat the Nazis, we must land the Allied armies in France. The Germans have been fortifying the beaches for years, and they know we're coming. They're going to throw everything they have at us, including jet and rocket aircraft. We will fly multiple missions and do everything possible to support the landings. Our casualties in the 4th Fighter Group may be severe." Blakesley paused for a moment. Now remember, a lot of these guys had been Eagle Squadron pilots. So many of them were aces, you couldn't go to the chow hall without tripping over a dozen aces. They were the ultimate, been there, done that group of warriors. Blakesley looked around the room and continued saying, "If at the end of the day tomorrow, we have successfully landed our armies in Europe, and not one of us makes it back alive, I could live with that." Then this room of seasoned veterans, as one man with one voice, acknowledged they were all in. Mission first, sacrifice accepted, dedication reaffirmed. To understand what transpired at that moment is to understand the heart of the 4th Fighter Wing. Then, since, and always. The next day, June 6, 1944, the 4th Fighter Group flew 3 missions at 0330, 1220, and 1820. Blakesley's plane landed after the last mission at 2253. Our casualties were heavy. We lost 10 planes with 7 pilots killed and 2 POWs. But we supported the successful landings, and victory would be achieved over Nazi Germany within the year. Our World War II veterans returned home to parades and adulation. They would be forever known as America's greatest generation. In the fires of World War II, the legend of Fort But First was born. If there are any World War II veterans or family members of those veterans here in attendance tonight, please stand and be recognized. Only 5 years later, our wing would be called upon to be the tip of the spear on the other side of the world.
On 9 November 1950, the 4th Fighter Interceptor Wing received orders to move to Japan. A week later, the F-86s of the 334th and 335th Fighter Interceptor Squadrons were lashed to the flight deck of the USS Cape Esperance. The 336 planes' personnel were shipped on board tankers. After being offloaded in Japan, the F-86 Sabres flew to Kimpo Air Base, Korea on 13 December 1950. What followed in the next 3 years was the most extraordinary accomplishment by any wing in any war in the history of aerial warfare. Overcoming the obstacles of horrific weather, terrible living conditions, unbelievable supply shortages, and 10-to-1 odds in the air, the 4th Fighter Interceptor Wing bore the brunt of the air war in Korea. On December 17, 1950, the anniversary of the Wright brothers' first flight, Lieutenant Colonel Bruce Hinton of 336 Fighter Interceptor Squadron became the first American to shoot down a MiG. On May 20th, 1951, Major James Jabara, 334th Fighter Interceptor Squadron, shot down his 5th and 6th MiGs to become the world's first all-jet ace. He did this despite flying with a hung tank. By war's end, the 4th Fighter Interceptor Wing shot down 506 MiGs. This total was over 70% of all the MiGs shot down in the Korean War. Of 40 American aces in the Korean War, 24 were from the 4th Fighter Interceptor Wing. Oh, and those guys in green, the Chiefs, they accounted for 218 and a half MiGs shot down, the most of any fighter squadron. Our Korean War veterans did not come home to parades and adulation. The Korean War is known as the Forgotten War. Well, we haven't forgotten you. Would all Korean War veterans and their family members in attendance tonight please stand and be acknowledged at this time? Thank you for your dedication and your sacrifice.
After spending years in Japan, our wing came to Seymour Johnson in 1957. We transitioned from the F-86 to the F-100 Super Sabre to the F-105 Thunder Chief. The 333rd Tactical Fighter Squadron joined us that year, but departed in 1964. In 1965, the 4th Tactical Fighter Wing squadrons began rotational tours to Southeast Asia to support the war in Vietnam. The 334th and 335th Tactical Fighter Squadrons, flying the F-105, deployed to Tak Lee Royal Thai Air Force Base in 1965 and 1966 to support the war in Vietnam. We lost 4 aircraft with 2 pilots killed and 2 POWs. In 1967, we transitioned to the F-4 Phantom. In 1972 and 1973, all 3 of our squadrons alternately deployed to Ubon Royal Thai Air Force Base to support the war in Vietnam. During this phase of the war, we flew more than 8,700 combat sorties, including 1,300 sorties over North Vietnam. We lost 11 F-4s with 8 aircrew becoming POWs and 1 killed. We fought with the same dedication and sacrifice of any in our wing in all the wars we have fought. When they returned home, they were not forgotten. Instead, they were treated with disdain. At this time, I ask that any Vietnam veteran and family member in attendance this evening stand and be honored. The Vietnam War devastated the morale of the American military, but the Cold War between the United States and the Soviet Union continued on. Just as Colonel Don Blakesley transitioned the 4th Fighter Group from the P-47 Thunderbolt to the P-51 Mustang in only 24 hours during World War II, the 4th Tactical Fighter Wing began transitioning to the F-15E Strike Eagle in 1988. In 1990, the 336 Tactical Fighter Squadron rockets completed their transition. The 335th Tactical Fighter Squadron was still in the process of transitioning to the F-15E. Desert Storm veteran and Silver Star recipient, Colonel Stoney Sloan, was the Wing Chief of Safety back then. Welcome back, sir.
Thanks, Doc. On the 2nd of August, 1990, Iraq invaded Kuwait. Now, during the Liberation War that began on 17 January 1991, it appeared to many that the U.S.-led coalition would have a pretty easy time of it. At least that's what some of the news media led us to believe. But Operation Desert Storm was definitely not easy for the 4th Tactical Fighter Wing Provisional. Now, recently operational in the F-15E, the 336 Rocketeers deployed 24 Strike Eagles to Dhahran, Saudi Arabia shortly after the invasion, but they weren't allowed to stay there because Operation Desert Shield was a peacetime mission. So they were immediately redeployed to Thumrait, Oman, which was hundreds of miles from Kuwait. There, they prepared for war. And sadly, during one training mission, we lost a Strike Eagle and 2 crew members. Come November, the Rocketeers were on the road again, this time to El Kharj, Saudi Arabia. Now, to call El Kharj a bare base is quite an understatement because literally, there was only 2 buildings there, one of which was a control tower. This is what I term the miracle in the desert. The miracle workers were the engineers, communicators, cops, contracting folks, controllers, life supporters, aircraft maintainers, transporters, services personnel, and the weapons and ammo troops. What they built there was simply amazing. And in fact, it wasn't too long before this base actually became an R&R location for ground forces. Now, in the middle of all this, the 335th Chiefs, whose transition to the F-15E had been radically accelerated, arrived in December. At this time, things started getting heated up. Unfortunately, our wing became robust. With the 2 units that we had, was added an F-15C squadron commanded by future 4th Wing Commander Randy Bigham, and 2 Air National Guard F-16 squadrons, which rounded out the wing commanded by Colonel, future Comac, Hal Hornberg. Oh, by the way, there was another 4th Fighter Wing Commander in the midst flying his combat sorties, Captain Steve Quast. But the miracles continued. You see, at the beginning of this operation, the Strike Eagle was only certified to drop 2 Vietnam-era munitions. And of the almost 11 million pounds of ordnance we delivered on 2,185 sorties, most of those were not precision guided. But the wing executed an extraordinary ordnance revolution during the war. And the amazing performance of the laser-guided bombs didn't come easy either. It was the dedicated teamwork between the ammo and the weapons folks, working with the aircraft maintainers and aircrew, that allowed everybody to work together to learn, build, load, and deliver these amazing weapons, all with very little engineering and technical data. So consequently, the battle damage went up, the collateral damage went down. 2 more Strike Eagles, 2 aircrew members, and a civil engineering troop were lost during the war. But their sacrifices were honored as Americans in the world witnessed futuristic technology combined with international cooperation that forced Saddam's army out of Kuwait. Operation Desert Storm ended on 28 February 1991. And while the casual observer might think that this was a pretty easy operation, it was really a victory that was brought about by the dedication, hard work, and sacrifice of the troops. So in a dramatic and spectacular fashion, once again, our wing was 4th, but first. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel. And thank you to all the veterans that served during Desert Storm. Please stand and be recognized. On September 11, 2001, Americans witnessed the nightmare of terrorists slaughtering thousands of peace-loving Americans. The 4th Fighter Wing was immediately involved flying Noble Eagle missions in the skies over America.
In January 2002, the 4th Fighter Wing arrived in Kuwait in support of Operation Southern Watch and Enduring Freedom, flying missions over Iraq and Afghanistan. In March, Operation Anaconda was launched, and the wing's mission was to provide close air support into Afghanistan. Operation Anaconda ended March 21st, 2002, with the 4th Fighter Wing's greatest highlight being their performance at Roberts Ridge. Members of the 335th Fighter Squadron successfully suppressed enemy fire from Al-Qaeda troops as Army and Air Force personnel retrieved stranded and fallen comrades. In March 2003, the 335th and 336th Fighter Squadrons supported Operation Iraqi Freedom. As part of the 379th Air Expeditionary Wing, members of the 4th Fighter Wing flew over 3,500 missions, dropping over 3 million pounds of ordnance. On April 18, 2003, members of the 4th Fighter Wing returned heroically to Seymour Johnson Air Force Base after contributing to the resounding U.S.-led coalition victory over Iraq. The war on terror did not end there. Our young men and women, our airmen of today, serve with the same amount of dedication and distinction as our Eagle squadrons of so long ago. Even today, as we celebrate our 75th anniversary, airmen from the 4th are serving all over the world. In the not too distant future, another of our fighter squadrons will deploy in harm's way. For all those airmen that have served since Desert Storm and continue to serve to this day, please stand and be acknowledged.
Come on, everybody, stand up. On June 2nd, 2011, the Air Force Historical Foundation awarded the first ever General James H. Jimmy Doolittle Award to the 4th Fighter Wing. The award was given in recognition of its sustained, significant contribution to Air Force history. The citation on the award read, "For gallantry, determination, esprit de corps, and superior management of joint operations in accomplishing its mission under difficult and hazardous conditions in multiple conflicts." The Foundation selected our wing to be the first recipient of the Doolittle Award because they knew our history and heritage was unsurpassed in the Air Force. Colonel Sage, welcome back to the stage.
Thank you, Doc. The 4th Fighter Wing has been America's tip of the spear since September 1942. And tonight, as fate would have it, Lieutenant Colonel retired Reginald Holden approached me about an hour ago and handed me a letter that was hand-delivered from the daughter of Colonel Blakesley. As we learned earlier, Colonel Blakesley was a pioneer, he was a hero, and he was a brave warrior. Not only did he convert the 4th Fighter Group from the Jug to the P-51 in 24 hours, but he also led the first sortie over Berlin. He also led the first sortie ferrying P-51s to the Russians as we armed them on the Eastern Front. I'd like to take just a second to read a portion of the letter that I received this evening from the daughter of Colonel Blakesley, who unfortunately couldn't be with us tonight because she's battling cancer, and she also lives in southern Florida, recovering from the hurricane. But she made sure we received this letter tonight. It says, "To the men and women of the 4th Fighter Wing, past and present, please accept my sincerest congratulations on the 75th anniversary of the 4th Fighter Wing. I feel a sense of tremendous pride and respect for each member of the 4th Fighter Wing, past and present, who have and continue to ensure the security of our great nation as part of one of the most distinguished fighter units in the world. As I reflect upon my father's life, many of the old photographs of him captured his character, but one of the images of him that is most special to me is the one of him seated in the open cockpit of the P-51 Mustang, his favorite aircraft, in his flight suit looking skyward. My father's formidable look in that photograph is the best visual evidence I have of his deep-seated love of country, the United States Air Force, and its predecessor service, and how extremely important he viewed the Air Force's mission to fly, fight, and win. In closing, I wish each of you the best, smooth flying and safe skies, as you will surely face many challenges and opportunities while serving the American public as a member of the distinguished 4th Fighter Wing. You will always hold a special place in my heart and prayers, while also having my sincerest admiration and enduring support. It is a privilege to convey my father's best wishes, as I truly believe his spirit and love of the United States Air Force will be watching over each and every one of you. Happy birthday, 4th Fighter Wing. Most sincerely, Dawn L. Blakesley. For our airmen of today, volunteers all, every day is both June 5th and June 6th, 1944, patiently training, yet ready for combat the next morning. Our air crew maintainers and support personnel are the most highly trained and technically sophisticated airmen of all times. Do you remember the old World War II footage, the black and white film showing 1,000 B-17s and hundreds of fighters fighting through the flak and German fighters on their way to a factory? Well, today we can do that same job with a pair of Strike Eagles. Maybe 4 if it's a tough target. Our F-15s are both the fighters of the sky and the bombers of the sky. And I think there's a lieutenant general sitting in here that called it once the SUV of the fighter fleet. I remember seeing him on CNN, or actually NBC, a decade or so ago. But since 9/11, our Strike Eagles have been the angels on the shoulders of our troops, serving in harm's way. Their mission is to make sure that the 18-year-old on the ground with a rifle returns home safely. And now, we prepare daily for the high-end fight against near-peer adversaries. This and the preservation of liberty is our sacred calling. We will remain vigilant, and we will not fail. It was once said that the footprints of your heritage help determine the course of your future. So here at the 4th Fighter Wing, we remember and we celebrate that heritage tonight as we look forward. The heart of the Eagle Squadron volunteer resides in today's airmen of the 4th Fighter Wing, much as it did with those American volunteers in the Royal Air Force. This fighter wing has always led the way into the defense of our great nation, and we will continue to lead with courage anytime, anywhere. At this time, I would like to ask you to direct your attention to the screen for our last video before we take a short intermission. I'm honored to introduce our guest speaker for the evening. A man that needs no introduction to this crowd, but for our out-of-town guests, General Holmes joined the Air Force in 1981 through officer training school after graduating from the University of Tennessee. He's commanded the squadron, group, and twice at the wing level. He served on staffs in Europe, the Pacific, and for more than a few years in our nation's capital. This spring, General Holmes took command of Air Combat Command in Hampton, Virginia, where he is responsible for more than 1,300 aircraft, 34 wings, 19 bases, and more than 94,000 active duty airmen. General Holmes has more than 4,000 flight hours, with over 500 of those in combat. As most of you know, General Holmes was the wing commander here at the 4th Fighter Wing from 2004 to 2006. It is my honor to welcome to the stage the commander of Air Combat Command, former Lion 1 and friend of Goldsboro, General Mike Holmes.
Thanks, Colonel Sage. Thanks, everybody. It's great to be back. The first time I was here, Colonel Sage talked about, lieutenant and going to OTS. The first time I was here, I graduated from OTS. My girlfriend, Sarah, was at Chapel Hill as a freshman. You can do the math later. I drove up to see her, and I was in pilot training, desperate to be a fighter pilot, and I talked her into driving down to Seymour Johnson so we could see what a TAC base looked like. So we drove down from Chapel Hill, we drove through the gate. I remember the pine trees, I remember the F4s. Every time I drive through the front gate up there, that memory comes back to me. I was back here again in 1985 in C models out of Langley. We flew down and did a 2v2 against, I believe, the Rockets and F4s. We landed and debriefed. We borrowed a car and, of course, went to Wilbur's to have lunch. Briefed for another 2v2, flew that, went home and debriefed. And then Sarah and I weren't back until 2004, when we were really fortunate to come back and have a chance to be the wing commander. So this has been a place that's been home to us. It's the place where our daughter Rebecca, after spending a year at Eastern Wayne, made her way into the North Carolina School for Science and Math and started down a path that ended up in a PhD in physics last month. It's the place where about 5 years ago, I was here for that last Strike Eagle reunion, and I looked over in the corner, and Hawk Nordgren and 2 or 3 other young guys had my son over in the corner with their arm around his neck and started a journey for him that ended up graduating from pilot training last Friday night. So, it's a place where a lot of good things have happened to us, and we're really glad to be back here. You know, Sarah has been through all of that, from that freshman trip down here to look at a TAC base, through moving with me one more time to Air Combat Command. And we talked a lot about the history of the 4th Fighter Wing, and we talked a lot about the airmen. But Sarah is beautiful, she's talented, she's kind, she's been a great mom, she's been everywhere that I've been and made everything that I've done possible. And for Sarah and for all the families that are here, I would just like to ask for all the spouses and all the families of 4th Fighter Wing Airmen, would you please stand up and give us a chance? Thank you. That's about the only crowd left that you gave me to recognize as we've gone through. So Mayor Allen, thanks for having us back. Mayor King, the Goldsboro and Wayne County leaders that are here, councilmen, commissioners, thanks for inviting us back. It's great to be back here, Mayor King, to be once more a part of the greatest fighter wing on the planet, here with you. Thanks to the Military Affairs Committee, now led by Scott and Kim Lefevers, but all of our old friends that are here on the committees that direct it, and all the members of it. We're very pleased to be back here with you. And I'd also like to have a shout out to Troy and Joyce Pate, our old friends, great mentors to us, and we're happy that we can spend some time with you guys. So we're really happy to be here with you tonight. You know, the 4th Fighter Wing's history is not completely lined up with Seymour Johnson, but for those of us that are here now, it's pretty close. Their histories are intertwined. They've always been lined up together. It's hard to think about one without the other. So we're really grateful to all the people from Goldsboro that have made this home, for all the airmen over all the years. Thank you very much. To the wing leaders here, you know, this is the place where Colonel Holmes learned how the building blocks that the Air Force depends on fit together to make a wing work. So Colonel Sage and Jessica, Colonel Armstrong, Chief Adams and Suzanne, all the group commanders and squadron commanders, thank you for your leadership. Thanks for putting all the tools together. Thanks for making sure that this engine works the way it's supposed to. You know, next, the former Lion Ones, the former wing commanders. Starting with Larry Huggins. You know, I'm pretty sure that Miss Evie, and Evie and Dave are here, the longtime secretary. I'm pretty sure that Miss Evie would put a call out to Larry when she thought maybe I needed a little encouragement. He'd stop by from time to time. It always seemed he stopped by when I needed somebody to pump me up a little bit or encourage me or have somebody to run things by. And Larry, I know you've done that for a whole bunch of wing commanders, so thanks for that. And thanks for being here with us tonight. And then Steve and Joni Quast, Grace and Tanya Kelly, who couldn't be with us tonight, Moon and Dee Dee, Slopes and Zavi, also not here with us, and Tally and Yogi. You know, former Lion Ones, all of you really have a longer association with the wing than I do. All of you are much better at your jobs than I was. But all of you have learned from what you did here and have moved on to continue to do great things for the Air Force. And really, for all the Lion Ones here, the truth is in the Air Force, you get promoted out of being a wing commander because of the work that the people in the wing do. And so all of us are a product of you and people like you, and we're grateful to you. So thanks very much. You know, we've heard tonight of the proud history of the 4th Fighter Wing, and the truth is there's none better. It's the Air Force's most accomplished wing. But what I want to talk about a little bit is to remind the folks that are here now. I want to talk to the current members of the 4th Fighter Wing that in the years to come, youngsters are going to sit here at an event like this, and they're going to look back on this group here tonight, and they're going to marvel at what you've done in the same way that we're marveling tonight at the people that came before us. Ops, maintenance and intel, mission support, or mission assurance as I like to call it, medical, the families, the total team that makes everything happen here. As Forrest said, everybody here is a volunteer. Everybody in the 4th Fighter Wing always has been. You know the risks, and we've stood together at fallen comrade ceremonies and fallen foreign lands. We've sat together here in the chapel in remembrance ceremonies for friends that we've lost. You know what it takes to succeed, how hard it is to build teams that can do the things we ask you to do, and you know who is counting on you to keep doing those jobs. The world we live in is a dangerous place, and it's getting more dangerous every day. You know about our 25-year struggle with violent extremists. You've been a part of it. We're getting ready to send another group out to join that fight here soon. But that's not all that's going on in the world. We know that Russia and China are trying to split the West, trying to split our allies, and to rewrite the rules of the world on terms that they think are favorable to them and that fit their goals. We know that Iran continues to try to struggle for who's going to be a master of the Middle East and who's going to be the master and set the rules for Islam. It's causing trouble all over the world, and particularly in the Middle East. We know that North Korea, a country somehow with no enemies and no threats, continues to rattle the world's cage to try to get something, but continues to cause trouble, and we could be there any day. So what deters those countries? What keeps them awake at night? What do they plan and prepare to be able to counter? Well, the answer for me is you. That's what they're worried about. That's what keeps them awake at night. You know, I think you're overworked and under-resourced, and sometimes because of the tempo, under-trained for what we'd like to ask you to do. But I would tell you, if we started with the 4th Pursuit Group, or we started with the Eagle Squadrons, we've always been that way. We've always needed just a little bit more. We've always been a little too busy. We always wish we'd have a little bit more training. And there's still work to do, and there's still history to be made for the 4th Fighter Wing. And what I want to tell you is that no one else can do it but you. There's no one out there that the country can rely on to do the things that are required but you. I rely on you as the Commander of Air Combat Command every day. The Joint Force relies on you for your ability to control the air. Our allies rely on you every day. The world's unfortunate people rely on you every day to bring them a measure of justice. Your family and friends, our family and friends, rely on you. Together, as a team, you control and exploit the air. You do it like no other wing does in ACC across all the missions that we take on. We need that more than ever now, and again, no one else but you can do it. So thanks for your efforts that you bring us every day. Thanks for your determination. Thanks for your spirit. Thanks for the sacrifices that you and your family have made. We will call on you again soon, some sooner than others, and I know you will answer the bell like you always have. May God bless all the airmen that have been part of the history of the 4th Fighter Wing over the years. May God bless you and your families that are doing it now, and may God continue to bless our country as we move forward into this dangerous world. So thank you very much.
Thank you, General Holmes. Your message is a true inspiration to us all. As a token of our appreciation for your words and leadership, Tech Sergeant Matthew Thomas will present you with a framed print of Ronald Wong's painting called Eagle Legacy. It features a 4th Fighter Wing Strike Eagle in Afghanistan, whose reflection in a pool of water is a Royal Air Force Eagle Squadron Spitfire from World War II. The entire history of the 4th Fighter Wing portrayed in a single image.
We got just a place for it.
Outstanding, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Ladies and gentlemen, for our closing comments, once again, 4th Fighter Wing Commander, Colonel Sage.
Team Seymour, I hope you've enjoyed tonight's festivities. Not only have we celebrated 75 years providing dominant 4th Fighter Wing air power, but we've also celebrated you, both our airmen and our community. Airmen who continue to seek innovative ways to accomplish the mission. Thank you for what you do every day. And to the spouses attending tonight, we deeply appreciate your efforts and your support that you provide each and every day to this base and to our airmen. And as General Holmes said, we could not do it without you. Also wanted to thank one last time our great community for being here this evening. Your steadfast support of these warriors and all of Team Seymour, it's invaluable to our ability to accomplish the mission day in and day out. We hold our community relationship in the highest regard because we know how unique they are and how important it has been to our airmen and to our families. So once again, thank you for all being here. Thank you to our team that put this effort on. Thank you for your friendship, and may God bless each and every one of you. Have a great night.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm looking for a cake. Is there a cake in the house? Excellent. Master Sergeant Marak?
You know it's not that easy to just eat cake. We have to throw some tradition into it. As many of you know, it is tradition to have the youngest and the oldest member in attendance cut the cake.
Now, out of respect for my fellow silver hairs, we don't want to call anyone out for being old. So, General Holmes, will you please join us front and center?
As for the youngest, born in 1999, Airman Adams from the 4th Logistics Readiness Squadron.
Wow, me too.
Thank you, General Holmes and Airman Adams. At this time, the official portion of our ceremony is concluded.
Just one last thing. We would like to extend a heartfelt thank you to everyone who came out to join us this evening and all of those airmen who helped in planning and organizing this event. Thank you.
As a friendly reminder, please have a plan. Don't drink and drive. You have options for an alternative way home tonight through our volunteers out front. Thank you all for joining us. Party shirts are now authorized. Good evening.